Hey guys, I don't have a bunch of time, but I wanted to talk about something really important going on with the case of Quinton Simon. Just here. So Quinton went missing back on October 5th. He's 20 months old from Savannah, Georgia. Um, he's been missing from his home in the 500 block of Bulkhalter since 6 a.m. this morning. Approximately. A lot of this information has been changing. He wasn't reported missing until 9 a.m. He was wearing a light blue Sesame Street shirt and black pants. Originally, this information was that he was missing at 6 a.m. Since then, that was the last reported sighting at 6 a.m. Mom's boyfriend says that he was in the pack and play at that point in time, but all that information is really kind of fluid at this point. Since then, there's been constant searches. They've had planes out or helicopters out at night with night vision, with heat vision, trying to see if he's lost in the woods or something like that. But it's not looking like that might be what's going on at this point. I saw my daughter's in the back watching Bluey, so the thing about this case that's really bothering me is like so many of the other cases that we've been seeing where there's some sort of DCF, CPS, whatever involvement in the kid's life, and it looks like the system fails them in some sort of way. Before we go down that rabbit hole, I wanted to just go over the full timeline so that why that's important actually makes sense. Thanks for that. There we go. There you go. There's your bluey. No clicking, please. So before he went missing on September 16th, his mom, Quinton's mom, Leilani, and her boyfriend were served with an eviction notice. Now, Leilani and her boyfriend live with Leilani's mom. So it's not an apartment, it is Leilani's mom's house that they've been living in. But for whatever reason, the relationship is not that great. And when she was trying to get them to move out of the house, they were refusing. Therefore, she went the route of the eviction notice. It was actually set up on September 16th, but it wasn't actually served on September 16th. It was put in the mail. They expect it arrived at the house sometime last week. So Leilani probably wouldn't have known until then. 2 days after that, on September 18th, she being Leilani, made a post on her Facebook about how her rough housing with her kids and her fiance, boyfriend, whatever you want to call him, was being taken the wrong way. And then right after that, on September 22nd, she no-showed her child support case, which was really interesting because it depends on where you live. Certain states do and certain states don't. So when you have a child that's taken from a parent's care due to CPS or DCF involvement, the state can actually file for child support and support of that child um, to the non-custodial parents. So she was actually served information about that um, long before this, but then she just decided to not go to court. And then on October 5th, which is also the day he went missing, she also lost that child support case on default because she just didn't show. Now, a lot of this just is to show the overall situation going on around him at that time and to show what could be happening in that house and the type of environment that he's in. We have constant fighting, a family that's disjointed. He was in the physical care of his mom at the time when he went missing, but she's actually not custodial of him. Um, she actually is just supposed to be like babysitting her own kid at this point. I think the hardest part about this is, once again, when we talk about DCF getting involved in kids' lives, I know that grandma has been heartbroken. Um, I also know that it's been really difficult because the reality is he was in the person's care that he was removed from, and now something awful has happened. I mean, we're talking about he's been missing for several days now, and statistics do not look good. Um, Especially the fact that they just haven't seen any trace of him anywhere. And then when we get down to the more specific timeline, um, so on that day at 5:30 in the morning, she called the babysitter. So it sounds like despite the mom being there daily, because she either wasn't working or was working short hours, um, there was a babysitter for. She reported that it was strange because there was no reason to cancel him being babysat that day. For then the last sighting to be only 30 minutes after that, when reportedly mom's boyfriend saw him in the pack and play. At the same time, that's also the timeline they're giving us for the time that they realized he was missing. Like, she got up and got out of bed at 6 a.m. and realized that he was missing and then didn't report him for 3 hours later. But now the timeline is that he was seen pack and play at 6 a.m. But now we have a bunch of question marks around when he was actually realized that he was missing. And then on the same day at 9:42, police were dispatched to the house. Um, so to kind of give you a more in-depth timeline for that day. Now, it's Friday. That was 2 days ago. And we're talking about 20-month-old. The police are saying that could still be anything at this point in time. But the more and more this goes on, the less hopeful it is, statistically speaking. Now, about everything else in my title. Now, this is where it really gets sticky because I understand that for CPS, DCF, whatever you want to call it, it's different in every region. We try to place children with their families. Now, I don't know why specifically Quinton and his older brother were removed from his mom's custody yet. Still looking into that to know more definitively why. But they were awarded custody to his grandma. Now, some other things about his family that I definitely think are relevant is, I'm trying to see if I linked up here. the issue is, so Quentin was named after another Quentin in his family. Quentin's uncle was sent to jail for murdering someone. To kind of give you reference to what's going on in this family around him. Yes. So on top of everything, you're such a, so on top of everything, um, and that was back in 2011. So it's not like it's super recent, but, and I haven't seen if he's still in jail, but he was convicted and was put in jail back in 2011, 2012 time period. The crime was in 2011, but the trial wasn't finished until 2012. And then, so that's what got us really digging into what is going on around this poor child. I mean, the police released statements early on that I can actually go back to. Bear with me here a second. I'll actually get to this in a second. But when the police made statements early on, they mentioned some very specific things. One of the things they mentioned is, yes, they've had 2 police calls to this address, but neither were for a missing child, which makes me weird. Like, what do you think we thought that he had been missing before? But they don't specify what those calls were for. And this is the little section here about the babysitter I mentioned. Right here. This is the important part. This is what I was talking about. So at 5:29, pretty darn close to 5:30, they would not be here and would not be babysitting them. So I think they were like going over his house. Like, what I don't understand is why the change in plans, especially so early in the morning. Now, this information keeps changing over time. Like, this particular information has not changed, but a lot of the information compared to what we were told when this all first happened is changing. Originally it was, oh, possibly the baby walked out of the house on his own or something like that. The police did state that this is definitely not what they consider to be a custody issue. Like, they don't think that this is an Amber Alert. They have not issued one. There's no signs of an abduction. There's currently no signs of foul play. They've really gone down the list of things that they really just don't think that this was someone else coming in and taking the baby away. Now, we've seen this in a case before, especially the reports of them searching in trash cans. I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with the case of Cody Bigsby, but he was also a young toddler who went mysteriously missing in the wee hours of the morning, supposedly. And when the dad looked suspicious, that's one of the first things they were doing is they were double checking the trash cans. And it was also reported that in the case of Quentin, the day he went missing was also the day that the trash was picked up, which is why they rushed immediately to check the cans. And they've since then gotten warrants and have been searching all their other properties as well. Nothing's changed. Yeah, and I checked the police page this morning. Nothing has changed overnight into today as well. They do have a press conference at 9:30, which was just a little bit ago, and nothing had changed. There's no new information. It's more of just a breakdown on what resources are still being used um, in regards to the search for him. He's so cute, though. No touch, please. Now, I can't find exactly where it's been happening, but I've seen people commenting several times that there's been reports from his neighbor saying that he's been found outside alone by the street before. I haven't seen that verified yet, um, but it would certainly paint a picture in regards to what's going on in the house. Um, I really hope it's not true, um, but it's looking more and more like it is. Now, this was on the timeline, but just to kind of give you an idea specifically what she said, um, can't even horseplay with my man and kids without someone coming in the room assuming the worst. I mean, rough housing is fine, but given the timing of this particular thing being 2 days after her mom went to court to go ahead to evict them for her mom's exact words was constant fighting, and that not being the type of environment that the boys needed to be around, and then for her to be posting this 2 days later definitely seems telling to me, considering now less than a month after that he's missing. And this is specifically the information regarding that eviction that we had also talked about. Um, and to be super clear, it was mailed. I know the original report said that it was served on the 16th, but when you actually review the paperwork, it was mailed. So I don't know many places that do mailed evictions. I don't know if it had to be in a particular sort of, if it had to be first class or signed for or something like that. Um, I still need to look into that a little bit more. Normally, it has to be served directly, but for this particular area, it was mailed and estimated to be delivered sometime during last week. Now, if you go to our Facebook page for him, you'll find him through our True Crime Replay page. You can go to About and then to Groups. You'll find it there, or you could just search Quinton Simon and you'll find the group. We also have all of their social media accounts pinned. So if you want to go look for yourself, we do ask that you don't interact on their pages. It doesn't do any good, um, but it is there for observation. Let's see. Now, on to Billy Joe. Billy Joe looks like a great grandma. She was the person that DCF placed in charge, in custody of Quinton and Zane, his brother. My issue is Billy Joe's background. We know from other cases like Harmony Montgomery, sometimes things are overlooked. That necessarily doesn't make them the safest person to put around. Now, I'm not in any way saying that Billy Joe would have hurt him or anything like that, but I'm just wondering if, like, making responsible decision making is really taken into consideration when we look at cases like these. In Billy Joe's situation, hold on, let me pull up the very long sheet here. So, in this very long list of files, there's things like this. So, this is why I wanted to actually bring this up. So, May 2nd, 2011. This was grand theft. She was actually under active suspense for previous drug charges. She had previous charges for cocaine and other things as well. The reason this one was specifically highlighted was this was the point in time which her son murdered someone. He was actually with three other people. I'll actually go ahead and pull up the article again. Let's see here. Here, now we have this is Nathaniel Quinton Betterton. So Betterton was Billy Joe's first husband's name before she remarried. Nathaniel Quinton Betterton is only 17 here when he, along with two other teenagers, were tried for murder. And just so that, for those that use screen readers or anything like that, I'll read it for you. So this was in Savannah, Georgia. Now keep in mind that Billy Joe's charges are down in Florida, and those are confirmed as well. 3 Pooler teens were reindicted after additional charges were added to their case stemming from the murder of Timothy Moore, who was 27. Sharif Palmer of Pooler and Aaron Saddam and Nathaniel Quinton Betterton were all indicted on charges of malice murder, adding to their previous indictments of felony murder, aggravated assault, and armed robbery. Palmer, Saddam, and Betterton were arrested in connection with the murder of Moore after his body was found on September 6th in the woodline of Garden Acres Mobile Home Park at 1105 South Roger Street. An autopsy by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Medical Examiner's Office determined the death was a homicide and Moore was the victim of fatal gunshot wounds. So, to be more specific, Palmer pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter, armed robbery, possession of a firearm, committing a crime, and false statements. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison with 10 years to serve without parole. Aaron and Nathaniel were also charged. What had happened is they went ahead and all 3 of them shot and killed Moore during a robbery. And have a little bit more from someone who was a little bit closer to the case, but I don't put their information up on the screen. Reportedly, he and the two other boys had lured Timmy into the woods, tied his hands behind his back, and shot him in the stomach. They robbed him and left him to die. Now, I don't know about you, but this is 2011. This was long before Quinton was born. I don't know if there's other Quintons in the family, but her brother, who's convicted of murder in like a particularly brutal fashion, has Quinton as a middle name and now has her son named Quinton. Like it sits on me wrong. Like I was doing digging into the family tree to see if I saw it elsewhere. Haven't seen it anywhere else yet. Um, but it is what it is. It just paints more of a picture of the type of environment that these kids were potentially growing up in and the history of the people that are around them. That's the part that I think is most important. Now, if we go back to other charges and why I was wondering why DCF went ahead and chose them, I know these are older charges. And you know what? If you follow me elsewhere, especially on Twitter, I talk a lot about recovery and supporting addicts in recovery and everything of that nature. I just don't know necessarily, like, was there not a better option? Um, I mean, we have a child that was raised that was a murderer. She being Leilani has lost custody of the two boys, and they place her with another felon. We have possession of cocaine. We have another grand theft. This is another one. It's not the same one. Yeah, this one I got a chuckle at. So while she was in jail, there were other charges as well. Um, Sneaking stuff into jail, violation of jail rules. This was the fraud and illegal use of credit cards. That was the felony um, grand theft. And then some old domestic battery situations. Now, I don't doubt her love for her grandkids at all. It just breaks my heart that she was in care of these kids and trusted these kids, or trusted with these kids. And now I'm seeing, because what I've been wondering is, okay, so where was she? Why were they alone? Like, how did this happen? Why is it not that grandma first saw them? How did grandma not? Why? Like, I have so many questions about this. Um, my Thanks for the coffee, sweetie. The thing is, they were trusted to her. And now we're finding out she was in Illinois, like not even there. Like I was wondering, okay, maybe she had an early work day. Maybe she had an appointment or a meeting but she was in Illinois, states away, and this was her child to be taken care of. Like these kids were removed from their mother for a reason, and she was trusted care with them, and she leaves the children with the mother that they were taken away from. And now this tragic thing has happened where he's now missing for days. Like, I don't get why that's okay. He's so young and like we see nothing but sweet words about this kid growing up in such a dysfunctional environment. And I've been out of shape about it um, since it started airing, honestly, because it seems so avoidable. There's some cases where kids go missing, and there's not much that we could do. There's not much, like, it's a freak accident. It's somehow avoidable. In this case, it's not one of those situations. I know they haven't found any evidence of foul play yet, but I don't know. It's not one of those situations where it's looking very optimistic. The change in timelines, the history of the family and trauma that has been ongoing. Um, I can only hope that he's found quickly. Um, I know the police and FBI and all sorts of crazy resources are out and about, still trying to find him. I'll definitely put more information together on Monday. I'm still recovering from a cold, but I didn't want to sit on the information as in regards to, the family environment that was going around this kid, especially since we see so many other cases where, like, it feels like it was preventable. And I don't want his story to be washed out by the positive prayers and positive comments, and it get overlooked that there was preventability here, if that's even a word, but you know what I mean. Well, I just want to say thank you, anyone that tuned in. I'll go ahead and I'll be posting all of the charges that were a little too tiny. And I'll be putting those up on Twitter. If you don't know what the Twitter is, just kind of look down below. There's links for the nonprofit Facebook page, for donations, Twitter, everything of that nature. I just want to thank you again, and we'll make sure to keep you up to date on what's going on.